What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Football Chatbox. And as I have said that, I have just realized I'm displaying on the stream the YouTube analytics page instead of the thumbnail. But we're off. Welcome to the first podcast for the season, the pre-season podcast, effectively. My name is Ryan from the Football Chatbox, and I'm joined by two friends from the two legends, I should say, from the FPL Australian community, the FPL Side Net Podcast as well. I've got Peterson, and I've got Andrew, his co-host, both from the FPL Side Net Podcast, and they've just released their first episode, powered by the Sports Social Podcast now as well. Yesterday, so you should be able to find it all over. Day before yesterday. Yesterday
Came out. Yeah,
should be all over all your audio platforms where you get it. But we'll talk about that more later. Now, before we start, I just mentioned this off camera as well. So the last podcast I did for last season was with the two of y'all, and funnily enough, I was looking at the episode count for the podcast because this is episode 89. So I was looking at episode 88. I was like, oh, it's the two of y'all. Now I'm starting this season with the two of y'all again. So hopefully this is the start of good things to come for this season.
Yep, you can't get rid of us.
I know, indeed.
I don't know if I should apologize or say thanks.
So, because I was trying to set the names, and I went to my overlays where I set the names. I was like, these names are familiar. Why are they there? I definitely don't remember setting this before. And then I realized, okay, because you guys were last, and I had the ranks and everything. So I was like, okay, let me hide the ranks because they were not relevant anymore.
We're all ranked number one, mate.
Indeed. So how have y'all been, and how has the pre-season tinkering been going so far?
We've been good. Just really enjoyed the 3 months off, or however long it's been. So I've been pretty much switching off from FPL, not thinking about it too much. And yeah, in terms of the tinkering, I haven't actually done that much. I signed up. When I signed up for the season, I kind of put a rough draft together, and I've tinkered once or twice, and I'm kind of at a point where I'm pretty happy with what I've got. So I haven't done like 1,000 drafts as I have in previous seasons. I've been I've pretty much stuck with my first draft because I kind of like the look of it. But there'll definitely be some tinkering around the edges though between now and deadline.
Fair enough. Pete?
Yeah, I loved the off season. It felt like we had a proper break for once, and especially I didn't play Euro Fantasy. I watched the Euros, watched a ton of it, but I did not play Euro Fantasy. So it was nice just to switch off and just watch football for the sake of watching football and not stressing about it. So yeah, I haven't been tinkering too much, but I dare say probably the last week or so I've been doing a little bit here and there. Like I'll just get like something will just pop into my head about a player, and I'll just quickly grab the phone and sort of you move one piece of the puzzle, and then it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just go, I just remove it.
Fair enough.
The future Peter problem.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously now we've got less than 2 weeks to go. And there's still a few more preseason games to go. Obviously, your boys Chelsea are playing Real Madrid.
Yeah, they lose to Real Madrid tomorrow morning.
For now, they're playing Real Madrid, so we'll see what happens with that. I want to ask you, from a Chelsea fan perspective, going into the season, obviously now Palmer has still not played a single game for Chelsea, and you got a new manager as well. How do you see that impacting impacting Palmer in terms of an FPL asset? And what do you think will the early season be for Chelsea?
Yeah. So looking at the Palmer part of that question, I think he's joining up with the squad. Like it might have been yesterday. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe he gets a few minutes in tomorrow morning's friendly, or if he's in the squad. So that'd be interesting to see. And as far as his involvement goes moving forward, like Maresca being from City, coaching there, he'll have a really good idea about Cole Palmer already. Like he'll know him very thoroughly about his style of play and everything. And I mean, it's pretty clear to see what he did last season that Chelsea should be building this team around him to sort of get the best out of him. But yeah, I'm keen to I'm keen to see what Maresca does in that aspect, because it's been a bit of a sort of an up and down preseason, a few concerning things, but it is a bit tricky when you play on some of these US pitches, because most of these games are being played in really large stadiums, and all the really large stadiums are American football, so it's like hybrid artificial grass. And every game we go into, I just hope that no one gets injured like last season, because Nkunku did his knee in like the first game of last preseason.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. We've already had 2 players out injured.
Oh yeah, as you know, you guys would know. So you sort of have to weigh up the clubs need to weigh up like the risk of these injuries compared to like the financial benefits of going on these tours. But I suppose with the way the finances work these days in football, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, fair enough. I think like as long as clubs are being paid a ridiculous amount to go on preseason games, they'll continue.
They'll go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. The injuries is a different story. They won't look at it at that point. Like the people making the decisions aren't the football people.
Exactly.
That. Yeah.
Exactly.
Andrew, looking at, let's say, Chelsea on the other hand, from a neutral perspective, how are you like approaching? Because they have a really good run from like game week 2 to 7. And I'll bring up like the season ticker on stream for those who are looking as well. So they've got a good, obviously game week 1 tough against City.
Yeah, sure.
Probably we've got like a small peek of what is to come after the last preseason game as well. But after that, they have a really good run. And when the game launched, I went and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and get a Chelsea defender because I'm gonna use them for this for this run that looked really good on paper.
Yeah.
Obviously, a few drafts later, that Chelsea defender is no longer there.
Correct.
How are you approaching like picking Chelsea players?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm really interested to see how Cole Palmer's going to do this year, because I feel like he's the main man. He's going to run the show, but I think the first half of last season they literally relied on him for everything. But then later on in the season, Jackson found his feet a little bit. Nkunku came back. You had people like Madueke kind of emerging. I think that there's other players on Chelsea that can chip in now. And so even though I think Cole Palmer's going to be just as good as he was last year, I don't know whether he's going to match the goal involvement that he had last year in terms of percentage goal involvement. So what I'm trying to weigh up in my mind is, is that, looking at Nkunku at 6.5 versus Palmer at 10.5, like, is the value equation there to justify going for Palmer with such a huge price difference between the two? Defensively, I agree with you. Like when FPL came out, I was really keen on going for whichever of the Chelsea goalkeepers ended up looking like being first choice, because they all come out they both come out at 4.5. But yeah, the way they've been defending in the preseason, I've sort of ruled that out. Like I don't care if Bobby Sanchez is first choice; he's going nowhere near my team. But yeah, I think it's interesting though to see what happens with Reece James. That's the other name I think worth looking at, because I think he's suspended for the first 2 games. Is that right, Pete?
It's either 2 or 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3. So by the time he comes back, maybe Chelsea will have a little bit better of an idea of how good or bad their defense is going to be, and obviously that Man City game is going to be out of the way. It might be tempting to bring him in just for a very short period while their run of fixtures is good, knowing that he's probably only going to be fit for 3 or 4 games anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's out for the first 3. It says suspended until the 14th of September, so that's just before Bournemouth in game week 4.
Yeah. There you go. And I mean, I'm sure he's not going to come straight back into the starting lineup, but maybe it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks before we see him start a game. Hopefully by then they'll have sorted out some of the issues that they're showing at the back in preseason. Because yeah, when he's fit and he's starting, he's always very tempting. He's only 5.0 this season, I think. So someone that no one's thinking about yet, but he might be emerging just as people start playing that wild card if they're going, week 4, 5, 6 wild card.
Yeah, and with the Maresca system, he could play like that inverted fullback as well, potentially, which could offer. I mean, we've already seen a lot of talk about Trent, who's also yet to play preseason, and people are like, "Oh, he's going to be so good." Maybe Reece James could be the same situation. The only problem is Reece James' fitness is a cause for concern.
Yeah, they might even play Reece James at right centre back just to try to preserve him injury wise, and then maybe he won't have the attacking threat that we want to see from him. So yeah, I just don't think we know yet. I don't think there's any Chelsea defenders that that I've got really any interest in to start the season. Just I don't think we know enough.
Yeah, and they've signed a new goalkeeper as well. Now we'll wait and see. Jorgensen, I think, who faced the most amount of shots in La Liga last season.
Yeah, very impressive in La Liga. So I think he will end up becoming the number one. Interesting to see if he starts tomorrow morning's game. That'll be really interesting because at 4.5, like that's a really good option with those fixtures. Except we just don't know if he's going to start. I feel much more comfortable putting him in than Bobby Sanchez. But yeah, it's from like a defensive aspect, FPL wise, I think it's like a hard avoid at the moment just because there's so many players. Like we don't actually know. Like it looks like Maresca was playing a back three. We don't know which three on when we get to game week 1 are going to be the starting three. Like I'd probably be the most confident in Colwill, and then the rest I don't know because Tosin's arrived and there's Wesley Fofana's back from injury as well. They got Batashile and there's a few others that I can't even remember off the top of my head now. But yeah, you'd be sweating team sheets.
Fair enough. Yeah. So okay. So from Chelsea, just to wrap it up, is Nkunku the only one who's right now worth having in your drafts game week 1? And would you say he's like a really good essential play to have, or is that
I think he's the only one that I'm considering. I wouldn't call him essential. I think that he's a really good option of the 6.5s. He's the one that I like the most, but there are other 6.5s that other people are making arguments for, and I can understand those arguments. I wouldn't call him essential at all, but yeah, I think he's a really good option. And I think that my gut feeling is that he's going to have a really good season, and that 6.5 is going to look like he was underpriced. But we'll see.
Anything to add?
Oh, agree. I mean, last season he was 7 or 7.5, and he was a forward.
Yeah.
And I remember, when we were looking at those prices, everyone was sort of saying the same thing, like he's undervalued, and now he's had an even bigger, price drop this season. So yeah, great value there. If he can, reach the heights he did at Leipzig, there's real potential there. Also, because he could sort of play as number 10, he could play as the center forward.
Yep.
I think he's going to be the guy that is playing, if fit, he's probably going to play all the time.
Yep.
And he's going to be the guy that, he might end up like playing as the center forward for like the last 15 minutes of the game if they're moving chess pieces around. So yeah, I think he's great value. But yeah, I mean, him getting all these penalties on pre-season just makes me think that would be Cole Palmer's.
Yeah.
That would be Cole Palmer's.
Yeah.
So
he's been winning those penalties as well, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think he's got that real talisman vibe about him. So yeah, buzzing to see him, get that balloon celebration happening at Stamford Bridge this season.
If he stays fit, so let's see.
If he stays fit.
Okay, so Andrew, you mentioned Wildcard previously. For both of you all, when do you have? So I know you all mentioned it on the pod as well with you all when you touched about it. Like, are you looking at a wildcard window, or is it just like go with the flow, see where it lands?
Oh, do you want to go first, Pete?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't really have a wild card like scenario set up, and I never really go into any season thinking that. I always go into the start of the season looking at like the first 5 to 6 game weeks, because that's all that matters. And yeah, if I need to, I can wildcard out of that. I mean, most of the time, most managers wildcard between like 4 and game week 8, sort of like in that window anyway. And by then we'll have a really good idea of squads will be settled, formations will be settled, and you can sort of get away. I think European football will be like well in by then too. So we'll have an idea of who's first choice come game day. But yeah, I mean, if we all want to start the season really well, don't we? So if we start really well, we won't need to wildcard, but yeah.
True. Now with the extra transfers as well, which we probably won't be getting to 5 free transfers, but maybe 3 transfers might actually be not a bad option to have. Andrew?
Yeah, it's interesting this year. we did talk about it on the pod, and I kind of said that I don't think I'm smart enough to plan my wild card at the same time as planning my game week 1 draft. So I am going to keep it pretty. I'm going to keep it pretty open mind about it. But I think what's interesting about this season is I feel like you can probably, if you have a really really good start and you pick a really good game week 1 draft, you can probably wild card early with all of these transfers banked because you haven't had to make any transfers early. And say in game week 6, you wild card from a position of strength, get the perfect team for a fixture swing. Like for example, I think Arsenal has a really good fixture swing in game week 6. So you could have 5 free transfers, wild card into a perfect team, and then come out of it with 5 free transfers. You're almost setting yourself up for the entire season. So that's one scenario where if everything goes perfectly, you could wild card early. The other scenario that you can wild card that you might have to wild card early is if it's a complete dumpster fire and you're forced to wild card early because your team's going so badly. So I kind of feel like an early wild card will happen if you're doing either really well or really badly. And if you're kind of just plodding along okay, that might be the time where you just decide to keep going and save it for a bit later, which is kind of a bit counterintuitive, but that's kind of how I feel like it might go.
Fair enough. Yeah, I personally am. The only thing I've looked at is like somewhere around that 6 to 8 mark because of that the fixture swing. But again, I don't. I'm not thinking of wildcarding early because I feel like might be slightly too early as well. Is what I'm thinking because Europe. I think European fixtures start earlier this season because of the extra games as well for the Champions League and all. Added to that, there's still transfer speculation among quite a few players. So the window, I think, closes just after game week 3. So have to kind of wait and see. I want to get a bit more information once Europe also kicks in to see rotation and everything. Aston Villa especially, like they have like a good run of fixtures at that point. And I want to see how like they deal with rotation. Unai Emery in terms of Europe, he's done really well. But how will he take this Villa squad and will he rotate? That's another question. Talking about Villa, apart from them, I've got the season tick up. Liverpool are a team that have really good fixtures and are part of lots of managers' conversations. Now, the only problem that I've had every time like people ask me like, Liverpool assets, which one? I'm like, Salah, and I have no idea where else, because there's so many options, new manager, and almost like half their main players who are supposed to play haven't hit preseason yet. So how are you approaching like Liverpool players in general for building your game week 1 squad?
Yeah, I'm at the moment, like a lot of my drafts, I've had no Salah, which is a bit frightening. But having seen Diogo Jota in action the other day, and we were talking about him the other night on our show, like Jota's one of those players that when he's fit and when he's playing, he just hoovers up points. And I sort of feel like I'm willing to take that aspect of the game on by playing Jota because it saves the money. He could play as a centre forward, but you don't have the penalties and you don't have the minutes. Now, that could all change when we see Darwin implemented into some preseason friendlies, but they're running out of time. I think they only have like one preseason friendly like scheduled still. So it'll be a bit interesting to see what Arnie's slot does when we get to that. But if Jota is still having a good preseason, I would expect him to start. And he's probably he might be one of those players that starts 2 and comes off the bench in the other. Yeah, it's just whether you're comfortable to take that on. I feel like I'm willing to do that if he's fit.
I think Liverpool have a game against Sevilla upcoming. One more. That's the only game they have. That's on I think Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we get a chance to see some of those players. Yeah. But even then, we're probably not like fully guaranteed whether they'll feature or not.
And you'd think being a week out from the league, it would be as close to a starting 11 as you'd expect, I suppose.
Yeah. So, Andrew, Liverpool, thoughts?
Oh, it's Liverpool's a nightmare. Like, obviously you've got Salah. Personally, he was in my initial draft and he hasn't left. I just think that Liverpool have got such great fixtures, but it's just such a nightmare figuring out where the minutes are going to go with everyone except for Salah. Like you've got Jota who can play in the middle or on the left. You've got Gakpo and Darwin that can play in the middle. Darwin can play on the left. You got Diaz on the left as well, and I mean, there's even talk of Anthony Gordon joining them. I don't know if there's any substance to that, but it just seems like the last thing they need is another player that can play on the left wing. But yeah, it's just looking through it all. It just seems to me like Salah is the only one that you can rely on for minutes. And with the fixtures that they're starting with, I just can't bring myself to start without him. You know, he's the greatest FPL player of all time. I think he's going to have another bumper season. I think he's going to easily clear 200 points again. And yeah, I just don't see any other attacking options that we can rely on. I agree with Pete that it seems like Jota is going to get that initial start. But I still wouldn't be confident of that lasting beyond, game week 2 or so before they start to integrate, some of the other players like, Gakpo or Darwin to take, to threaten that starting spot. And Jota will, if he starts, he'll come off after 65, 70 minutes. If he's benched, he'll always come on after 20, with 20 minutes to go. So you'll always get some minutes out of him. But yeah, you want to have more reliable minutes than that. For me, I don't really want to have to, be forced to make a transfer after only 2 or 3 weeks. If it looks like Jota's starting position is under threat. So that's why I just find it. Even though I absolutely love Jota as a player, and I think that every time he starts, he almost always returns. I just can't bring myself to start him in my game week 1 draft. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now, apart from the attack, the defense, Trent has been a big conversation. A lot of managers have had to go with Trent or not to go with Trent. And I feel like if you're going Salah and Haaland as well, then on top of that, majority of people would have like a Isak or a Watkins as a second striker. Trying to add Trent on top of that as well. I don't know, funds-wise, trying to add Trent, then does that decimate your midfield? Or do you instead allocate that money to maybe getting like an 8.5 million priced midfielder? Where are you in terms of like Trent, no Trent? And also any other Liverpool defenders that interest you? Because Kwanzaa, I've got sneak peek, I've got Kwanzaa in a draft.
Yeah.
And he's got good minutes so far. So I'm assuming if he plays the upcoming one as well, that I'm willing to take that risk in terms of starting the season with him. But just to wrap it up, Liverpool defense.
I agree with you on Kwanzaa. Like I've been keeping a really close eye on him. If he emerges as like a regular starter, then I think he'll be in everyone's team at 4.5. My thoughts on Trent, and this is coming from someone that has Salah and Haaland in their draft. So obviously money is very tight for me. I just see him as being a bit too expensive. I know it's not a like for like because it's not Liverpool, but I'd almost rather spend 6 million on Gvardiol, or 6 million on an Arsenal defender than 7 million on Trent. But if you are going with a draft with only one of Haaland or Salah, and you do have, a little bit of more freedom in terms of funds, then yeah, I think Trent, he's always going to be a great FPL asset. So I wouldn't criticize any draft with Trent in it.
Fair enough. Two more teams that I'll touch on before we look at our drafts. Arsenal, tough start. A majority of managers, including myself, at the moment, I don't even have Arsenal players. Now, obviously, they performed really well last season. Defensively, the best team in the league. Their defenders have been priced at 6 million. Unfortunately, we can't even get new signings at 5 million even, but like all 6 million, most of them. Except for maybe Rhea at 5, and I think Timber at 5.5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Timber's 5.5, yeah.
They've signed California as well. Does that bring rotation problems? Are you a bit worried with that? Because Timber is fit, can play anywhere in the back line. California can play that left back spot, left centre back spot. Does Gabriel's position now become a bit of a worry? Are you looking to go towards Arsenal defense for the moment, or is it just a wait and see?
Yeah. I'll add that. I mean, the way my team is set up, I think a lot of managers are in the same situation where you probably only have the luxury of having one expensive defender, like depending on how many premiums you have in your side. And yeah, the fact that all the Arsenal defenders are 6, and we're not exactly 100% sure other than Ben White, who I think is Ben White's 6.5.
Yeah, he is.
I believe. Other than him, and I would say Saliba, they're probably the only two I'd be certain about starting. Like Zinchenko could start the season, but then once Calafiori starts, getting the minutes, he's, probably going to take that position. And I mean, Timber cost them a lot of money last season, and he started and then got injured straight away. So, I mean, surely Arteta and the Arsenal hierarchy have an idea of how they want to play. So, yeah, I think I think it's just a little bit too expensive. Like you said, maybe once they get past that initial 5-6 weeks when the fixtures really flip, and then we're sort of tinkering with our wildcards, we'll have a better idea of actually who is the ideal back four for Arteta, and then it might be a case of being able to fit one of those assets in.
Fair enough. Pete? Not Pete. Andrew?
Yeah, I've been wrestling with the Arsenal defense when I've been tinkering with my draft the whole preseason, because as Pete said, like, I can pretty much only afford one premium defender, and I wanted that to be an Arsenal defender. I think I started off with my initial draft with Gabriel in there, but when they signed Calafiori, I started to be concerned about sort of everyone's minutes. Like obviously Ben White.
Yeah.
If you've got is it Timber and Calafiori and Timber. Obviously, you've got them. Ben White, therefore, if he wants to start Ben White, he might move him to centre back, and then which of the centre backs is going to go? It's going to be Gabriel, I guess. So even though Gabriel's probably the one with the best attacking potential, and that's the one that I'd like to own if I could be confident that he was going to be an everyday starter, I'm feeling a little bit more confident in starting with Saliba, just because out of all the defenders, he's the one that is pretty much going to play every single minute of every single game. So yeah, my current draft is sort of it has been flip flopping between Gabriel and Saliba. At the moment, I'm on Saliba just because of those concerns. And then it makes it difficult because he doesn't have that much attacking threat. So then I start to think, should I have should I have Gvardiol instead? But then I have no Arsenal at all. So, all these little things, they change the way your entire draft can look. But yeah, in conclusion, like Arsenal defense, I think that Saliba is the safest, or Raya, if you want to spend a little bit more on your goalkeeper. I think it's not a terrible shout to have him at 5.5.
I guess the only thing to add is like fixtures, not a problem. Or how are you looking at it? Do you think it'll be like low scoring, probably nil even?
I wouldn't be worried about starting an Arsenal defender in any game, even Man City. Like if they a Man City away, they probably would try to go for a 0-0. And yeah, I think against the really good teams, the Arteta would probably keep it pretty tight. And then in those other better fixtures like Wolves at home, you'd almost think that's a bit of a clean sheet banker. So yeah, I think Arsenal are one of those. I think Arsenal might be the only team in the Premier League that I'm not really concerned about the fixture. I'm still happy to play their defenders.
Fair enough. Attack-wise, obviously Havertz was a popular pick last season, got pushed to forward this season. Gabriel Jesus is fit and has been playing preseason games as well. They are linked with Merino, who might sign potentially. I don't know what that's going to affect, whether that's going to be like pushing Declan Rice further forward, and does that mean Havertz, I don't know, does he continue to play number 9 or Jesus plays number 9? I'm not really sure on that one. We'll have to wait and see. Then there's Odegaard at 8.5 as well, who you expect will, regardless of whoever else signs as captain, will most likely definitely play. From the attacking point of view, where do you stand? I'll go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Saka's just returning back to the squad now, isn't he? So
Yes,
I mean,
that's also there.
we've seen Arteta plays him no matter what. So I'm sure once he's available, he'll start playing. But I really like a few of my drafts when I've been tinkering when trying to get an Arsenal asset in. I have been playing around with Martin Odegaard in that midfield. He's like fully rested. He's had the complete like off season to recuperate, just like Haaland. Yeah, he's had the full preseason. He's captain, and he's hopefully we see him play a bit further up the pitch. So especially if they're looking at adding Marino to Declan Rice in that midfield, like Partey, like he's still there at the moment. I know there's rumors that he might leave, but he's going to be starting the season as well. So there's more. There's a bit more defensive line behind Odegaard, so he can push up the pitch. But yeah, and I think Havertz at 8 million is actually really good value. Like if there'll be managers out there that maybe can't stretch to like an Ollie Watkins or maybe even Isaac, but just dropping down that slightly to Havertz could be really great for probably more the long term, because once we get to game week 6, Arsenal's fixtures just get amazing. I think they got like Leicester, Bournemouth, Southampton after game week 6. So yeah, but yeah, a few tricky fixtures before then, but yeah, I think Havertz or Odegaard could be interesting. Do you think? I mean, Saka's probably going to still have penalties, surely.
Yeah, I think Saka will. The only thing that I'm worried is like he's a good player. The only thing is like I've tried to avoid as many players who've gone like further into Euros or even Copa America, because I'm not sure for like what their fitness levels will be coming back. Like how fresh are they going to be? They carrying a knock, etc. All of that. I just kind of wanted to avoid that and go with players who've had like proper preseason games.
Yeah.
And then obviously it helps in a way because Arsenal's fixtures at the start are slightly tough. So can get into the Arsenal players, I feel like, at that fixture swing in game week 6. But obviously we know Arteta will play Saka regardless of whether he has 1 foot or none. At this point, he might play him. But yeah, just because of that, like he's gone so far into the Euros, I want to kind of avoid him. But Martin Odegaard is a good option. I like him generally. Last season I owned him, and I felt like he did well when Arsenal were pressing to try and win the ball back, because then he used to play as a front 2 with Havertz up front as well.
Yeah.
And he ends up in positions of like the attacking after they counter press. So he is an option for me at that 8.5 million midfield slot. But yeah, I haven't thought about Havertz too much just because I'm not sure with Gabriel Jesus there as well, like who's going to play that number 9. Will Havertz be moved into the midfield role like he was at the start of last season? And then Merino also coming in, so it's kind of a bit pushed me away from that point. But yeah. Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about the fact that I think we're lucky that Arsenal's fixtures are a little bit tricky up until game week 6, because it gives us the luxury of sort of being able to start with, with not as many Arsenal players, and then just seeing how it all pans out. But I think that we will want 3 probably from game week 6 onwards. So we need to start thinking now about which of the assets that we like. And yeah, I agree. I really like Odegaard. I really like Havertz. I really like Saka still. I think Saka's still going to have a great season. But yeah, if you're going to have Haaland and Salah, like there's no way you can fit in Saka. So
yeah,
it might be. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why I'm keen to start with one Arsenal defender as well, because I know that I am going to want the Arsenal triple up in game week 6 or 7 or whenever that fixture swing happens. And so then it's only 2 more transfers to bring in. It's not a complete surgery of your team. And hopefully by then, we'll know whether we want Saka or whether we want, do we want double Arsenal attack? Will it be, Saka and Havertz, or Saka and Odegaard, or will we want double defense? Maybe it'll be like Raya, another defender, and then one of the mids or something like that. So we have time between now and when Arsenal's fixtures really turn to kind of assess the landscape.
Yep.
But I think it's really difficult to pick Arsenal assets for game week 1, especially the attacking assets, because there are question marks over all of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me it's just a bit of a wait and see for the attacking assets.
Fair enough. And then the final team that I want to touch before the drafts, City. Now, Haaland has been showing in preseason why, even though he's 15 million, he still makes a case for like having him in the team. If you had to pick between Haaland or Salah, where would you go at the moment?
Well, considering I've made that decision, I would go Haaland. Like he's a machine. Yeah, just like Erdegaard, fully rested. Worked on his tan in the off season, and yeah, having seen quite a bit of him during this preseason US tour, he's scoring every game. And yeah, I tuned into that Chelsea game the other morning, and by the time that I managed to get Paramount Plus loaded, like he was lighting up to take the penalty, and then I thought, well, it's not a bad start for him, but hopefully Chelsea improve. And then, he has the ball in the net a couple of minutes later. So, and checks notes. City plays Chelsea in the first game of the season. So I was saying to Andrew the other night that if the fixtures were swapped and City was starting the season against Ipswich, like everyone would have him and everyone would be captaining for that first game. So yeah, that's for me. If I had to choose, Haaland.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Haaland is the number one priority. I guess I like some of the other alternatives in midfield. Like you've got probably a quartet of semi-premium midfielders in Son, Foden, Saka, and Cole Palmer. So there's a lot of other options in midfield, and whereas up top you kind of got Watkins and Isak, but they're quite a bit underneath. What Haaland is, the price of Haaland. So I think that if you're going to have one, I would start with Haaland, because if you don't start with him, it's so hard to get up to him. Whereas, if you don't start with Salah, you're probably going to start with one of those other 4 players that I mentioned instead, at least one of those. And then getting up to Salah is not such an impossible task. So I think that's the other thing to consider as well.
Yeah, the surgery required to go to a Haaland is a bit more harder than going to a Salah. Yeah.
Basically, it's a wild card or 3 or 4 free transfers if you've been lucky enough to build that many up.
Yeah, if he hasn't destroyed your rank by then.
which you probably have.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, I started the season with like, Haaland too expensive. No, I'm not going there. And then he does what he does, really well. And then now we've seen the rumors of Julian Alvarez also not going to be there. He's going to Atletico Madrid. So that just further strengthens Haaland's claim. Apart from him, are there any other City players that are interesting? Because Oscar Bob has been having an incredible preseason. Pep has come out and said that he's going to ease in like the players who've gone for the Euros and everything. So I'm not expecting Foden to start game week 1. So does that make Oscar Bob a decent pick to start, or is he just too punty and maybe not worth it?
Oscar Bob, the Nordic light meat shield. Yeah, I mean, Pep's track record with young players isn't the best. Like it took him 400 years to get Phil Foden implemented into that. Like we forget, Phil Foden's been around for 6-7 seasons. Like it's only been the last 1 or 2 he's actually cemented that spot. And yeah, Cole Palmer just even though he was great in the last season's Charity Shield, he then ended up moving on. So it could be a case where, and Oscar Ball's one of those players. When he plays, he always looks really good, really attacking. But he usually just plays cup competitions. So, in that case, he probably will play the Charity Shield. Probably will look really good. But then we get to game week 1 and he might just be on the bench. Yeah. I'd if Foden had the full preseason, then there's definitely that conversation there. But considering Pep himself has said, like you just mentioned, that these players coming back from Euros and Copa will be implemented slowly. Yeah, it's a bit of I'd rather just I'm happy sticking with Haaland.
Yeah.
Because Grealish is playing great this preseason, but who knows, come game week 1, Doku could just be getting that spot, or one of the new signings they made. So
yeah, they have Savio as well.
Yeah.
PSV to Girona to but yeah, he's also another option who could feature, but then again, he could also be very quiet this season because we've seen Pep. He makes new signings and he takes like a season to integrate all them into the team as well. Defensively though, obviously they just like Arsenal, Liverpool, any of the teams that had like a lot of players going to Euros, they haven't had their defense fully back yet. And Guardiola's had a few games. Is he the only one that you'll look at, or anyone else from defense that's worth considering?
Yeah, I think it's just Guardiola, to be honest. I just think he's just the standout option, just at that price point, given how he finished last season. And he does seem like he's going to be pretty solid for minutes at the start of the season as well. So I think he's a really, really good pick. And I think that he's by far and away the best defender to choose from City. So yeah, I really think it's to start the season, game week 1, it's probably Haaland and Gvardiol, and that's about it. But I'm sure that Foden is going to play a very big part in our seasons as the season wears on, just not for game week 1.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, before we get to our drafts, I'm just going to read a few questions on the YouTube chat so that they don't think I'm ignoring them. But basically, we'll start with Nishal. Basically, Salah plus Munoz or Saka plus Trent, if you had to pick.
Well, Munoz is better than Trent anyway, so Salah plus Munoz.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd agree. Salah and Munoz. Yeah.
All right. The next one is top 3 6 million or under forwards. There are a few options there. Obviously, Muniz is at 6 million. I'll give you a couple other. So Muniz, I would put Edward from Crystal Palace, since Mateta is now going to the finals of the Olympics on this Friday. So who else? You've got Armstrong from Southampton. Joe Pedro hasn't featured at all, so I probably might not look at him, to be honest. Anyone else you think 5.6 million and under? I'm just gonna go and look at the FPL app.
Yeah, like
Chris
Wood. Chris Wood.
Yeah, I like. I think Muniz is probably number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably João Pedro number 2. I know what you're saying about his little niggly injury, but I think that even if he doesn't start game week 1, I think he'll pretty quickly integrate into the team. And he's at a price point where you can probably bench him for game week 1 anyway. And just given that he's going to have penalties, I like, and I think that Brighton are going to be a pretty decent team this year. I like him. And maybe Armstrong 3. I don't really like Chris Wood because I just think it's a matter of time before he loses his place to Awoniyi.
Yeah, because he's back in preseason. Awoniyi.
Who's also 6 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously West Ham has signed Fulkrug as well. Who knows what price he might come out as well. The next one is, this is not a question, but Joseph has said Liverpool play Sevilla at Anfield at 12:30 on the Sunday, and then at 5 p.m. on the same day they play Las Palmas at Anfield as well, behind closed doors game. So there's probably 2 games happening, one behind closed doors. So maybe if Trent doesn't feature in the first one, might feature in the second one. We'll get to see later, I guess. The other one is saying Rhea as a way into the Arsenal defense is a good option. Don't have to worry about goalkeeper. I guess that makes sense. Even that,
but you don't get really save points.
Yeah, that's the one
from
thing.
Rhea.
Yep.
And if especially those first 5 weeks or so, they're a little bit tricky on paper with trips away to Villa, trips away to City. 5.5 is a lot for a keeper. If he feels 5, 100% be there. But 5.5 just feels a little bit too much.
Fair enough. Another one is from Nishal. Thoughts on Morgan Rogers at 5 million? Option or trap?
Option, I think. I could be wrong. He might end up being a trap, but I do. I guess he's a low. I guess it's low risk at 5.0 anyway. So if there is just that small chance that he's going to be like this year's game breaker, like an everyday player, attacking player for a sort of top 6 team, then it's probably a risk worth taking at 5.0, because he's, obviously he's easy to bench if it does turn out that he's not what we hoped for. So I think he's a really good option to start with. I think for the extra 0.5 compared to like a 4.5 mid like Winks, for example, I think it's probably worth that. It's worth the extra 0.5, even though there might be some risk involved.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot of minutes this preseason, and we've seen with Villa, it's like up front, it's Ollie Watkins or bust. But it looks like Rodgers is probably going to be playing more like off his shoulder when he plays. So they've got. I was just having a look. So they've got 2 more friendly setups. So they're playing Athletic Club Bilbao, and then they're playing Dortmund as well. So 2 really big games actually for them. So that'll give us a good indication of how they play. But there's also the João Felix links that just don't go away, even though I feel like that's probably a little bit too far-fetched.
Yeah, and also like I was on Rodgers, and then if you look at where Aston Villa's last 3 preseason games, they lost all 3. So I've kind of been put off that as well. I'm not really sure if that has anything to do with, but 2 good games, like you said, right, coming up in preseason will give us a better idea in terms of whether he's a legitimate option or whether it's just maybe a case to be avoided, like to avoid Villa at the start, because they have Arsenal in game week 2 as well. And they also have, I think, do they have West Ham game week 1? There's a question about West Ham as well from Connor. He's a West Ham fan. Any thoughts on West Ham's new signings? Now, I'll come to Andrew with this because you're a Leeds fan and they've signed Somerville from Leeds. Thoughts?
I think Somerville's a brilliant player. I'm a big fan of his. What price is he coming at, or do we not know yet? 6 million.
6, yeah.
Yeah, I just think, I just think it's maybe a bit of a wait and see, and I don't love West Ham's fixtures to start either. So I think maybe when they have a good fixture run, he might be a good kind of cheap midfielder to bring in. But I don't think I want to start with him given their fixtures.
Fair enough. Pete?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a big Werder Bremen fan, so I love big Nicholas Füllkrug.
Yeah.
He's been amazing. I reckon he'll probably come in about 7.5 million.
Maybe, but then they've got Antonio and I think they've got Danny Ings both at 5.5 and 5.
I have a sneaky feeling Danny Ings is probably going to be
but
a new club.
Yeah.
Probably he's gone to all the claret and blue clubs already in the Premier League, so he needs to change of colour.
You got Aston Villa maybe.
He'd go back. So I think when Füllkrug when that is finally done, I mean he's passed the medical. From what I've read, he'll definitely be starting. He's just a great centre forward. He's a little old. He's a late bloomer, but yeah, he's just fantastic. You just put the ball near him, puts the ball in the net. So when the West Ham fixtures get really good, that's definitely an option. But yeah, West Ham's transfer business this offseason been really good. So adding Max Kilman as well to that defense, like they did that pretty easy. So Lopetegui clearly loves Kilman, like having worked with him at Wolves. And yeah, I think more West Ham, even though the fixtures aren't great, potentially having that goalkeeper double up with Areola and Fabianski. I'm sort of thinking maybe I might shift my thinking to that, because if anything happens, I'm going to have the backup there. I'm not going to have to waste a transfer.
Yeah, I started my first draft had Areola and Fabianski, and then I've sort of, I think to your point, Pete, only having to spend 8.5 on your 2 goalkeepers is perfect. So it's kind of between those 2 and maybe the Brentford 2 as the best kind of 8.5 double goalkeeper combination.
I guess we'll come to your draft then in that, because I've seen it in your draft. There are a few more questions, and then we'll get to drafts. And I think this Google Meets is about to end in a couple minutes as well, so we'll have to rejoin it as well. So just in case if these guys disappear along with myself, it's because the Google Meets has died. So I'll quickly ask the last few questions, and I think we'll close the Google Meets and start again on that. But one is from Q. Tempted to start the season with Isak captain, Jota, and Trent instead of a 4.5 defender.
Ooh. That's classic Q. Just like the man plays the game in such a different way. Like I tip my hat to you, Q. I love it.
I'm actually thinking. I'm actually thinking of captaining Isaac game week 1, even though I want to have Salah in my draft. So, yeah, I think just because you have Salah doesn't mean you have to captain him against Ipswich. I really do think Isaac is a very good option.
This will be without Salah though, because he's got Jota and Trent instead.
Yeah. Well, I thought that he was saying that would be an alternative to having Salah and therefore captain Isaac. But yeah, I think that in that scenario, I think Isaac is an excellent captain choice for game week 1. I think he's arguably better than Haaland. Although the way Chelsea are defending, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Would you go with Jota and Trent over Salah?
Yeah, it's not a bad payoff there. Two very attacking players. Yeah, I like it.
Fair enough. Okay. And the other one, so Smith Rowe with his first goal, 5.5 mil. I think one to watch and see, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just in terms of Fulham's midfield, I want to just see because they made a couple new signings as well. So need to see how they integrate. And then where could Somerville play? On the wings or?
Yeah, he'd play out wide on the left, wouldn't he? Left winger from memory. So
Bowen on the right, Kudus and Fulkrug up front.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. That. All right. Now, should we quickly end this Google Meets? I'll create another one, send it to you guys, and then we'll go into your drafts immediately. All right.
Done.
Let me try this. All right, people. If you guys can't see me, it's because I'm creating a Google Meet. Create a meeting for later. Oops. Let me join this. All right, hold on, people. This is live Google Meet problems, which I need to figure out. Thoughts around Marcus Rashford. I would honestly wait on Marcus. To be honest, let's see how the committee shield goes. But I don't mind him actually. Looks a bit more better than the last season actually. To be honest, I'll have a look at your starting 11 as well. I'll ask them that as well as soon as they join. Q, does the push Kudus to the 10? Yeah, I think probably Kudus to the 10. And Paqueta out wide. Pete is here. Now we wait for Andrew. Going without Haaland until game week 7, as if I did have him. I would only captain him in game week 2. Ooh. Brave call from Matty. I'm just reading the questions while we wait for Andrew. And here we go. Here's Andrew. All right. I hope that didn't mess up the cameras. Oh, no, it did. Andrew's become Pete and Pete has become Andrew. I can quickly make that move. Let me do that. Let me do this.
Bit of Freaky Friday body swaps.
Yeah. All right, cool. Everyone's looking good. All right, let's go into your drafts. And if anyone has team-related questions, I will ask that soon as well. Starting with draft number 1 from Pete. So you've got 0 in the bank, Henderson and Bentley in goals. What's the reason for Bentley being there? Is he just like 4.0?
It's just literally like I just went with any 4.0. Okay. So at that stage, just to sort of see how the balance sheet looks.
Yeah, fair enough. Dan Burn, Guardiola, Ian Maddison, Barco, and Harwood Bellis. So you've gone with the 2 4.0 defenders. In midfield, you've gone for Jota, Nkunku, Heung-min Son, Eze, and Lungo. 4.5 midfielder. And then up front, you've gone big up front. Watkins, Haaland, and Isak.
Yeah. So the other night when we were going through our drafts, I had Kai Havertz in as my third striker. And we were talking about what I really wanted to add. And I was just looking at those Aston Villa fixtures and I was just like, I need to get Watkins in. So yeah, to do that, I sort of had to trim a few things. So I did have Morgan Rogers,
Yep.
but I've dropped him down just to a 4.5. And for the moment, I've just made that Massimo Luongo only because he's Australian. I'm not expecting him to play. I was like, I'll just put him in for now. But yeah, sort of downgrading Cole Palmer to Nkuku, probably because more Nkuku's minutes are more guaranteed at this, to start the season. I like that. But yeah, Heung-min Son, he's been scoring a few goals this preseason. Spurs fixtures to start are pretty good as well. So I want a little bit of that action there. And I mean, that could easily be Saka because it's the same price, like 10 mil. Or it could easily drop down to like Odegaard. And then I've got an extra 1.5 there to play with. But yeah, it's really stretching the budget to the point where there's nothing left. I wouldn't mind trying to find another 0.5 somewhere, just so maybe to upgrade another defender. Because
your bench is non-existent.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the exact thing I was talking about the other night of my lessons learned from last season. I did the exact same thing. I just had the same issues where I had to make transfers just to field 11. So I might need to sacrifice. It might have to be Heung-min Son, down to just someone a little bit cheaper, and just to sort of upgrade another spot there.
Have you thought about sacrificing maybe an Eze instead?
Yeah, I could do that. I do really like Eze though, but if he's not starting, if Mateta's not going to be starting the season, Elise's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it is worth dropping him for someone else.
True. There's also the rumors, which I'm worried about. Transfer rumors and whatnot.
To United?
Not to United. Wasn't it linked
Spurs.
to City?
City, yeah.
City?
Oh, City,
yeah.
of course.
So I'm a bit concerned about that as well, slightly. But yeah, that's the only way I would think of maybe you downgrading slightly there, because he hasn't had preseason yet as well. That's another thing. But Palace in preseason have been scoring goals as well, so it's he's a very high EO player as well, if you look at the current percentages. The other thing that I would look at is, if you want to downgrade, is probably that Jota spot, but then you don't have a Liverpool attacker, so you're
I really need a Liverpool attacker, and I wouldn't want anyone else other than Jota if I was not to go Salah. So I mean that's sort of, I think that front three is fairly locked for me now. That's the front three I want to start the season with, and I think it's going to be Jota. Most of that back line is pretty set. It's just maybe trying to upgrade that one of those 4.0 defenders, probably the Southampton one.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Matheson, confident that he'll play?
Well, hopefully over these next two friendlies that they've got, he does play. Offers a lot from attacking perspective, but then again, if I'm trying to find 0.5, he could drop down to a Konza, who I'm much more confident minutes-wise, would definitely play. Because, my worry is once European football kicks in, Maatsen then gets rotated a bit, because there's Marino, there's Lucadine, there's Medicash, there's so many fullback options there at Villa. So, dropping him down to a Konza gives me an extra 0.5 to get someone else in, and
Fair enough.
Some tinkering to do.
Yeah. Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, I really love that front three. I'm pretty jealous of that front three. The Watkins, Haaland, Isak. It's beautiful. But yeah, maybe just to shore up the bench a little bit, it might end up being that you do have to take Son down. To someone like an Odegaard. Because the Luongo and then two 4.0s, it might be a bit too thin on the bench. That's the only concern. And I agree with you. You really do want to start with a Liverpool attacker. So Jota it's tough to remove Jota from that draft as well. But again, maybe Maatsen, you might be able to downgrade him to make 0.5. But if you want a little bit extra cash, it might have to be Son.
The other suggestions from the chat, one is sacrifice Eze for Daichi Kamada from Crystal Palace as well. That's one option. Then Then there's a mention of Harvey Elliott. There's a question as well from Twitter as well. In terms of Harvey Elliott, what do you think about Harvey Elliott this season? Do you think he'll start the season? So far, preseason been looking decent. Or is he in the same situation with like the likes of Darwin, Gakpo, Fabio Carvalho, or like too many options?
Yeah,
he's really in that rotation cycle there. Like, whereas Jota's probably at the top of that rotation cycle. I'm more confident with his minutes. Like, Elliott's a really good player, and like even Klopp said, probably one of his regrets the last few years was not playing him enough. Whether or not Arne Slot has the same thoughts about that, we're not too sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Out of the 4.0s, in terms of defenders, are those two like the best ones? Because there's a question about Wout Faes as well. My only problem with Faes is the Leicester starting fixtures are not great.
Yeah, and he scores own goals against Liverpool.
I had very bad experiences with having Wout Faes in my team last time Leicester were in the Premier League. So I don't think I can do it to myself.
Fair enough. And obviously we've got Ipswich with a couple 4.0s as well. So where do you sit on those 4.0s? Barco is the flavor on X, but fixtures are a different story. And he didn't start the last preseason. So are you a bit worried about that? One to monitor?
Yeah, a little bit worried, but yeah, it might be one of those ones that all he has to do is have one good game, and he's like the transfer market is so volatile in FPL the first few games. If he gets an attacking return, because he's been taking corners as well, so then he's just going to rise up in value, and then by the time you get to your first wild card, you just you cash that in and flip him for someone else before Stupinan gets back into that lineup.
Enough. All right, let's move over to Andrew's draft, which is both the Brentford keepers in Flecken, and I'm not even going to bother pronouncing the second guy's name.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it either.
Yeah, so I've seen it in a couple of drafts, and I'm like, I was suggested to call him like Vald, basically. Yeah. So I'm just going to call him that. Saliba, Munoz, Konsa, Barco, and Howard Belly. So you've gone for the same like 4.0 options.
Yep.
In midfield, you got Gordon, Eze, Nkunku, Salah, and Morgan Rogers. So instead of the 4.5 midfielder, you have the 5.0 who will most likely play. Then up front, you got Haaland, Isak, and Muniz.
Yes. I'm pretty happy with this team. I think as I've kind of alluded to already, I'm pretty much 99% sure that I want to start the season with both Haaland and Salah. I think Isak is pretty much a non-negotiable as well with the start of with the fixtures that Newcastle have to start. And I'm pretty happy with the midfield as well. Nkunku, Eze, and Gordon. Gordon's a little bit of a concern with the possibility of him moving to Liverpool. I'm not sure how solid those rumors are. I don't know if you guys have got more insight than what I have.
Last thing I saw was that Newcastle were trying to offer him a new contract. So he might probably stay, but that uncertainty is a bit of a problem.
It is. And then in terms of defense, I think we've spoken already about the reasons why I've gone for Saliba. I think I really did want to start with an Arsenal defender, and he's the only one that I can be 100% sure is going to sort of play week in, week out. Daniel Munoz, he's my boy. He was like one of the first names on the team sheet. He did some fantastic things for me at the end of last season, and I think that we're very lucky that he didn't score a couple of goals towards the end of last season, because he absolutely should have. And if he did, he probably would have been 5.5 and a lot higher owned. I think that 5.0 is very cheap for what he offers. He's very attacking. I think, in terms of this draft, the only thing that I might consider doing to change it up is I don't love the two 4.0s. So it's possible that I might downgrade I might downgrade Muniz to like João Pedro just for that extra 0.5, and then give myself another 4.5 defender, because I do think there are quite a few good 4.5 defender options, especially if this Mark Gahey to Newcastle deal goes through. Then I think he's going to be a really good option at 4.5, especially with the fixtures that Newcastle have got to start the season.
Fair enough. I'm not concerned on like Munoz and Konsa both yet to play preseason. Because Munoz in Copa America, Konsa Euros.
Yeah. Actually, when Munoz got sent off in the semi-final of Copa America, I was like, oh yes, that's great. He's going to be well rested. He doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to play the final.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine them not starting the season with him. I guess there's still a couple of weeks to go, and I guess these are the reasons why I haven't done a huge amount of tinkering, because I think there's a lot of information to be gained in the last couple of weeks of preseason games. If with a few days to go in the season, I have a look at how all the preseason games have gone, and I'm still concerned about whether some of these players are going to make game week 1 or not, then that's when I'll start thinking about what else I can do. But at this stage, I'm just going to assume that they're all going to be ready to go for game week 1, and if they are, Munoz for me is non-negotiable, and unless it looks like he's going to miss game week 1.
Question from Matty in the chat with regards to your keepers, especially Flecken, because last season Flecken wasn't really great per se, apart from maybe the latter end where he did a bit more decently.
That's right. Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind Flecken? Is it just purely because, like you mentioned earlier, with regards to Pete's, like that 8.5 combination?
Yeah.
Or...
It's exactly that. It's 8.5 combination. I think the best 4.5 keeper is probably Henderson from Crystal Palace. A couple of reasons why I didn't want to go for him, mostly because there's no 4.0 Palace keeper, and secondly, just because that would give me double Palace defense with Munoz. So yeah, but in terms of the keeper combinations where you can get 2 keepers from the one team for 8.5, it's kind of, I think the best 2 options are Brentford and West Ham, and I like Brentford's fixtures slightly better than West Ham's, even though they're not amazing. I do think Flecken was a lot better in the second half of last season than he was at the start, and he did find his feet. So I think we'll see a better version of Flecken for the majority of this season. So, but that is one position that I admit it's not locked in.
Fair enough. Okay. Pete, anything to add?
Yeah, just touching on that. Yeah, that Brentford goalkeeper setup. Like, yeah, their fixtures if you're just looking defensively, that first block of like 5-6 games, like the Brentford ones are pretty tough. Like, I know Fantasy Football Scout has them ranked like second bottom for defensive,
I think,
and there's still a few injuries there. So like Ben Mee's still out. Who else is out? Henry, I think, still hasn't returned yet. The Irish fullback they've got, his name escapes me right now. He's not back yet either. So they might be starting the season a bit patched up in defense there, which will make things tough, especially with those fixtures already. So
it also depends on kind of what fixture horizon you want to look at. I think a lot of people are looking at sort of the first 5 weeks, and they've got Palace at home in 1 and Southampton at home in 3, and then the other 3 fixtures in the first 5 weeks pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But if you extend it out to game week 7, they've got West Ham at home, then Wolves at home in 6 and 7. So it kind of depends. Like, we don't really want to make goalkeeper transfers, so it kind of depends on how far out you want to look at the fixtures when you're assessing how good or bad they are.
You're like hoping for 4 clean sheets in the first 7 or something.
Yeah, I'm hoping for 4 games in the first 7 where he doesn't score negative points.
Okay, fair enough. Because it's 4 home games, so you're trying to target those 4 home games effectively.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, you can always, with goalkeepers, it's very easy to build a narrative. You can say, oh, he'll get a lot of save points in the difficult games, or the easy home games, a good clean sheet shouts. Like, you can build your own narrative, but at the end of the day, I don't think it matters that much. I think the other 13 players in your squad are probably more important than the 2 goalkeepers, and the difference between the best 4.5 and the worst 4.5 is probably only going to be 20 points at the end of the season. So I'm not that stressed about it.
Fair enough.
I don't think anyone in FPL had a worse return from goalkeepers last season than me. So
when was your first goalkeeper clean sheet, Pete? I think it was about game week 30.
Oh my god, I had like 1 goalkeeper clean sheet till about game week 30, I think it was. So
Yeah.
it was just the worst season last
So
year.
I'm just gonna figure out which keepers Pete's got
Yeah.
the night before the deadline and just get not those.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, I'll go to mine. Now mine is a kind of still up in the air. I'm still not fully convinced on some options. But I've gone for rotating goalkeepers. So I've gone for Henderson, and I've gone for Forrest Miguel. I think he will probably be Forrest's first choice keeper. I don't see Turner or Matt Sells, like anyone taking that spot, unless Forrest go inside like a Ramsdale or something. Then I can't do anything.
They love signing goalkeepers as much
know.
as Chelsea does.
So I'm hoping he is going to be their first choice keeper because they've signed like he's 6'8" or something.
Yeah,
And,
he's huge. He's a monster.
So I'm hoping he will be their first choice. In defense, I've gone for Dan Burn. I've gone for Pedro Porro as a short-term option for the first 2 game weeks. Kwanzaa, Robinson, and Howard Bellis. That's my defense. In midfield, I've gone for Salah, Jacob Murphy. Interestingly, because I wasn't sure about like Anthony Gordon and the rumors and whatnot. I've gone for Bruno Fernandes purely as a 8.5 million placeholder, more than anything. Nkunku, and I've gone for Minte from Brighton. And then up front, I've got Haaland, Isak, and I've got Edward at the moment because Mateta is off at the Olympics. I'm not sure how early Mateta will return back into the Palace team. That could be another 5.5 as well. But since I don't have like an Eze, and Palace have decent opening fixtures, and Edward has been doing pretty well in preseason, so I'm happy to have that. Thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the Minte pick. I'll say that much. He's one that I was almost going to suggest to Pete when he was talking about downgrading like Eze, because I think that he's a really good option. He seems to be playing really well pre-season. Who was your front 3 again?
Haaland, Isak, and Edward.
Oh, Edward, yeah. I haven't seen Edward in too many drafts, but I actually quite like the idea of him.
Yeah, I've just gone because of the Palace. Like I know they'll score goals, like they'll do well. So that's why I've gone for that. It could be Armstrong as well from Southampton. If I wanted like a more nailed, not having to worry about minutes after Mateta is back. But I just like Palace's opening few fixtures, and I'm assuming Edward will play those opening few fixtures before Mateta like fully gets integrated into the team. But that might be booking a transfer potentially.
Yeah. I don't think it's. I think it's okay to book in like a couple of transfers as long as you don't book in too many.
Yeah, right now I've got like Edward, Pedro Porro maybe.
Yep.
And I would say, I don't know, Kwanzaa. I like Kwanzaa. I think he will start. So I don't think I'm booking a transfer there, particularly, especially for a 4.5 defender. It's just Edward and Porro, I think, at the moment.
I think Porro's in for a big season. I think, I haven't seen him in that many drafts, but I think he will go well. He might be someone that you don't really want to take out. You're probably not going to get too many clean sheets from him, no matter how good or bad the fixtures are.
Yeah.
So it's really just about whether he continues his preseason form and the number of attacking returns he's been getting.
I also have 0.5 in this draft. So Edward could become a Muniz if I wanted to, or Porro could become a Guardiola as well if I wanted to. I've only kept 0.5 just because to react to anything that happens at the start of the season. That's the one reason. Or Jacob Murphy could go to a 6.0 midfielder. There are a few spots there which can rotate. Like Bruno Fernandes can come down.
Yep.
Or can switch to Odegaard. If he comes down, then I can upgrade Murphy to another 6.5. Maybe a Kulusevski or maybe a Brennan Johnson, something like that from Spurs. But yeah, there are a few spots that are still up in there. That's the only thing I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think every single year I want to start with 0.5 in the bank, and I have never ever achieved it. So yeah, it'll be impressive if you can.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
Peterson. Yeah, like looking at your side, it's really hard to get that balance right with the drafts that have like Mo and Haaland, just because it chews up so much value, especially for yourself because you want to play. I'm guessing you want to play that midfield 5 all the time? So you play like 3-5-2 most weeks?
No, it will switch with Edward as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got Edward on the bench for the moment just because I prefer Minte against Everton.
Yeah.
And then when Minte plays United, I'll probably bench him and I'll start Edward against West Ham potentially. Is what I'm thinking. And then I'll play Edward against Chelsea as well, most likely. over Minte against Arsenal, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's probably where I'm at. And then Robinson will come in for when like either Dan Burn doesn't have a as great fixture or Pedro Porro has like tough fixtures. That's where I'm like looking to rotate.
Yeah, I do like the Robinson pick there from Fulham because
Got another assist
when I was
yesterday.
Sorry?
He got another assist yesterday as well.
Yeah, well, I was when we were talking before about my side and dropping down Maatsen to a 4.5 and upgrading another one, and straight away I was thinking, I'd love to get Robinson in. Just more so, he's called Jedi. I love Star Wars. So everyone calls him Jedi because he loves Star Wars as well. So, and he's have you seen him do the magic tricks?
No.
He's like I'll shoot out a tweet after this. He does like this insane card trick. And so, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Welcome to the Side Net Podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Look, if we're looking at your draft and looking at it after like a few weeks, and you trying to like put out fires like Kwanzaa, Edward, and Minte, or maybe Jake and Murphy, like I don't know, maybe two of those maybe could be issues once we get to like game week 2 and 3.
That's the only slight issue where I might put in. I've got Bruno in here. If United still look absolutely pretty bad in the Community Shield, then I will most likely downgrade that to maybe a 6.5. I could even downgrade to a 6.5 or switch it to Wildcard.
Although it feels like a really good price bracket for you
that's
because it gives you that option to move to other players. Because if you downgraded that and then spread the funds everywhere,
it's a problem to go up.
You're like, you're really hamstrung because you're not able to move to that price field. So, like Eddie Howe loves Jacob Murphy.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to be.
That's why I've got him in.
Yeah, and he tends to get quite a few attacking returns. He just goes under the radar because he's not a flashy type of player there. But yeah, like Minte could be one of those ones whose price starts to go up very quickly. So I do like that one. But yeah, look, if you're on the money with Kwanzaa, I think that's going to be everyone's route into that Liverpool defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Before we end, we have questions again. So I'm going to bring it up. We'll start with, I think, team-related questions more likely. So we've got one from Kanav, who has retracted his team question. So now I can't find it. Oh, no, I got it. I found it. So he's got Haaland, Isak, and Fraser. Fraser being the Wolves 4.5 player. Midfield is Bruno, Salah, Eze, Gordon, and I don't know who the fifth one is. I think it's a 4.5. And defense is Kastanege, Mikolenko, Konsa, Anderson, and Howard Bellis, with goalkeepers as Martinez and Turner, with 1 million left.
Yeah, right.
Thoughts? A bit hard to picture, but it's in the comments.
Yeah, I've just pulled up the comments. So I could read it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's pretty good. I mean, you could probably use that million to maybe upgrade the third forward to a 5.5, like a João Pedro or Armstrong. But yeah, I think a lot of really solid picks there. Who was the fifth midfielder again? Sorry.
Your Malik. I don't know who Your Malik. I have no idea.
It's just like a 4.5.
Maybe
mid.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Or you could even use that 1 million, use 0.5 to upgrade that fifth midfielder to like a Rodgers or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't mind the Martinez goalkeeper pick either. I haven't seen him in too many drafts, but I think he's a good pick as well.
It does feel like that defense is a little bit light.
Suspect, yes.
Yep.
That like if you're going to use that 1 million or even 0.5, I'd probably put it towards the
Yeah, because
the defense.
Mikalenko, Konsa, Anderson, Kastanege,
Yeah,
and Howard Bellis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone very cheap across the back.
yeah,
Yeah, probably upgrade the defense potentially.
yeah, I think so.
The next one was shared to me by Sanjay on Twitter, and I'll read it out for you guys. Basically, he had Martinez in goal. Again, another Martinez pick with Danny Ward as the backup option. Murillo, Pedro Porro, Munoz, Robinson, and Wout Face as the defense. Salah, Palmer, Daichi Kamada, Heung-min Son, and Semenyo in midfield. Muniz, Watkins, and Isak up front. I will copy the image and put it in the chat so that you guys can see it as a clearer picture. But yeah, just reading it for those on the YouTube/podcast audio. But yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, he's got Palmer in that midfield.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's chewing up a lot of budget.
He's got no Haaland, but like that like you know how Andrew mentioned the quartet of midfielders. He got Palmer, Heung-min Son, and Salah as well.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I guess the only concern is how do you get up to Haaland if you do decide that he is essential. It's probably downgrading two of those midfielders to upgrade one forward, which is fine. I think a lot of people are going to go with that strategy to start the season.
The other thing is he's got Semenyo in there. I'm not too fond of Bournemouth's like starting fixtures.
Yeah, it's tough. The Bournemouth fixtures are tough.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what they do if Solanke goes. Like, will it be Unal that starts as the centre forward if Solanke goes, or will it actually be Semenyo?
You'd expect it to be Semenyo, but yeah.
Well,
I all of that is like going without Haaland. Like on paper, while we're tinkering around it, it's fine. But I think you need to put yourself in the situation when you get to game week 2 and you're getting ready to watch that game of City versus Ipswich.
Is this after he's scored the hat trick against Chelsea? Is that what you're?
This is after
about?
After he scored 4 goals in game week 1 against Chelsea.
Yeah.
So you're already in panic mode, and then you're going into the Ipswich game where his EO is going to be through the roof.
Yeah.
If you could handle watching Haaland play against Ipswich.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to say what we can expect from Ipswich, but we know what we can expect from Haaland. So it could end up being one of the best fixtures for the whole season. Like it's probably closer to that side of the ledger than anything else. So
I have heard people talk about triple captaining Haaland in game week 2. So
it's not the worst idea.
No, it's not. Like it's.
I'd save it against Southampton when they do their standard 9-0 loss every season.
That's true.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's for SJ. There were a few questions, comments on my team as well with regards to too many rotation risk with like Kwanzaa, Minte, Murphy, Edward. So I do probably agree there. I might switch it a bit in terms of like either moving Edward to like an Armstrong for a bit more nailed security in terms of minutes. Kwanzaa, I'll take the punt there, see whether that works out or not. And maybe Jacob Murphy, I might look to alternate someone else potentially to reduce the risk in terms of minutes. There was another team that got sent to me from Rohan, and I'll put it in the chat for you guys as well, just to see. But the team was basically Flecken in goal, with Turner as the backup, Guardiola, Dan Burn, Mikalenko, Robinson, and Howard Bellis in the defense. Salah, Nkunku, Bruno Fernandes, Anthony Gordon, and Harry Winks as the midfield. Watkins, Haaland, and the Ipswich 4.5, Ladapo, effectively. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. Besides your team, I haven't really seen many teams that has Bruno, Mo, and Haaland.
How do you feel about United and how they're going to start this season? They're starting the season with a few injuries, aren't
Yes, they are. But at the same time, I feel like this week could be a big week for transfer rumors. They've agreed personal terms with players. Just trying to agree with clubs right now. So they've agreed with like Ugarte, Dilit, and Mazraoui from Bayern. Those two. So I don't know if they can get those signings in before the end of this week. I feel a bit more confident because that would free up Bruno to be more attacking, especially if they get the midfielder like Ugarte and they're linked with Rabiot as well, who is on a free. So if they can get the midfield signings, then I'm a bit more confident. But at the moment, I wouldn't touch the defense. Attacking wise, they've looked sharp, and I didn't watch the Liverpool game, but they created a lot of chances, and they couldn't finish it. That's the problem. So that could be rustiness. That could be lack of centre forward. I don't know whether there's a few question marks. I need to see in the charity shield like how they line up, because if Xerxes starts, then that's a different story. We'll have to see how he pairs with Bruno and all of that. So there are a few question marks right now, which I think the charity shield might answer a bit more. After that, I'll make a decision on whether I keep Bruno or whether I switch it about. I do also like Ahmad at that 5.0 bracket. Between him and Rogers, I don't mind either, actually, to be honest, if I was to pick, because I think Ahmad will start. I don't think Sancho will compete for that spot. And Anthony
do you think Sancho's going to leave?
Potentially. I think there's like a swap deal happening between Ugarte to United and Sancho to PSG. Like there's like a play over there, but I don't know how they're going to do it. But that's one of the rumors. And Anthony's just not good enough to start that right wing spot. And Ahmad, he had a really good season at Sunderland, if I'm not mistaken, like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah,
he was player of the season for them. So because of that, I'm confident on him to start, but we'll see. Community Shield, I could be saying a different story. It all lies on that one game for some reason, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Just getting back to this draft, the only other question I've got is how comfortable are you starting without Isak?
This is for Rohan.
That's why. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, having Gordon there in that side helps offset that.
A little bit of insurance, but I almost feel like Isak's as close to essential as you can get for the start of the season. The way that, the fact that he's on pens and he's just how much he's improved over the last couple of years and the fixtures that Newcastle have got. I would be very nervous starting without Isak.
Yeah.
But I mean, most people are going to have to make a choice between Isak and Watkins. So he'll have Watkins as somewhat of a differential, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good side. Like, considering you're fitting in all those big premiums in there, I actually really like that. So yeah, especially with Watkins. Yeah, you don't have Isak, but you got Gordon there, because if it's the other way around, you got Isak. Like, who's the best Villa midfielder to have? Like,
that's Leon Rogers,
Bailey. Like, he might only play 60 minutes. Yeah, but he might only play like 60 odd minutes.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So,
which is why you've gone with Watkins and Isak in your draft, I guess.
I love Ollie.
Yeah. Fair enough. The only thing I have a bit worries, like similar to your draft, Pete, the bench is a bit weak.
There's no bench. Yeah. I mean, if you end up having Winks play, like, he's just going to get 2 points. Yeah, but it's a 4.5 midfielder. So unfortunately, we don't have an Andreas Pereira this season.
Yeah. It will be 2 points though. He will start.
As long as they play. That's all you need. Like, with your cheap bench. Like, if you've got a cheap bench, you just want them to actually play. That's about it. Anything else is a bonus.
Yep. Cool. I think that's basically it. Oh, one more from FPL MLZ. Not a team related question, but more of like he wants to find out information about Forest. He was asking whether you guys were Forest fans. So I was like, no. So, but he wants to know basically Hudson-Odoi versus Elanga in terms of pick between those two, and I think Nico Williams versus Aina on the other side.
Ola Aina.
Yeah, Ola Aina. So, where do you stand with that and their goalkeeper? Who do you think?
Oh, no, that's the thing. We don't really know with the goalkeeper. Like, if their new signing is playing, like, especially with those fixtures, I would prefer to go go that option with my cheap goalkeeper, but we just don't know. And look, if it's a choice between Alenga and Hudson-Odoi, just putting my Chelsea hat on, like I liked Hudson-Odoi. So
yeah, I agree. I think Hudson-Odoi is the better option between those two.
And then in defense, Nico Williams versus Olaina. Tough one there.
It's a tough one. What, they're both 4.5, aren't
Yeah.
they? So
Or would you just go Murillo instead?
Or Willy Bolly.
I'd probably go Murillo
because
he actually looked decent last season. Whereas like the fullbacks they can have their minutes managed, or that's where rotation usually is compared to the centre backs.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that Forest have got the best 4.5 defender options. I'd rather go for someone like Robinson from Fulham.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Robinson is a much better asset, to be honest. Yeah. All right, we'll end it there. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Plug it away, with regards to your podcast.
All right, you can tune into our show, FPL Side Net Podcast. That you can find that everywhere, wherever you find good and bad podcasts. And hit up the socials at FPL Side Net. I was going to say Side Pod. It's late.
Yep, and you can find Andrew as well, FPL Point Break on Twitter with the Keanu Reeves profile pic. So have a look in that.
The GOAT.
But yeah, thank you to both of you. Hopefully, I'll have you guys both on sometime later this season
next
as
week.
well. Next week as well. Maybe you just become part of the furniture at this point. But thank you to both of you. Make sure to follow them on Twitter. Links are in the description as well. And thank you to everyone who's been in the chat. I'll be live again probably Saturday or Friday. I'm looking at getting a guest as well potentially on Friday. Has to be confirmed with the guest though, so that's still up in the air. It's either that or Saturday stream. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you have
and subscribe, and subscribe.
Indeed, like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll answer them later. Any final words?
No, thanks for having us on. It's always heaps of fun talking football with you, Ryan. So you're mad hustle like all the time, just pumping content out. Like you're one of the goats.
Thank you. Right. We will see you all later this week. Peace out.
See ya.